And hello everyone. You should be hearing us now, I think. Okay, we'll just wait a little bit for your feedback. Can you hear me well? This is a very new exercise for us, so we are trying our tools too. Okay, awesome. Perfect. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, so welcome to this first Vates Live Session. This is a very new exercise for us, so grab a cup of coffee and we are about to start. The idea today is to discuss the achievements that we have done with XCP-ng and XenOrchestra during the year 2021 and the roadmap for this year and give you some insight. To do that, we have gathered a lot of people from our team, both from the XenOrchestra team and the XCP-ng team. So we really want to make this live session the opportunity to connect with you and to answer all the questions that we might have, that you might have for us. So pardon our English because most of us are French. So this is not our native language, so you will definitely hear a lot of mistakes from us, but we will do our best to be understandable. I can promise really more. Okay, so today with us we have Olivier Lambert, our CEO. So Olivier, if you want to introduce yourself a little bit, and after you, each one of you guys can introduce themselves before going deeper in the discussion.
Okay, thank you, Mark. So I'm Oliver. I'm the Vates CEO and co-founder. As Mark said today, we'll present a bit the team and also talk about what happened and what's next. So I suppose I will leave maybe Julian go ahead on introducing himself quickly.
Hello, I'm also a co-founder of Vates and I'm the lead developer on XO. So I'm mostly working on the technical details and with my colleagues, for instance, Pierre, who is also in the XO team.
Hi, so yeah, my name is Pierre. I work mostly on the front-end part of XenOrchestra and a few backend features too. And now I'm mostly working on XenOrchestra Lite, which is the small XenOrchestra that runs only inside your browser. That's pretty much it. Next.
Florent, go ahead.
Hello, I'm Florent. I joined Vates during last year. I'm working on the backend part of XO, especially the backup part, and I'm working also with Mark.
Hello, my name is Mark. I'm a project manager. I'm working with both team, development team, XCP-ng and XenOrchestra. So next, Benjamin.
Hi everyone, I'm Benjamin. I'm an XCP-ng developer. I mainly work on XAPI, which is the API used by XenOrchestra to control and manage XCP-ng pools. And also I'm specializing into the networking part of every component of XCP-ng. Now it's Ronan's turn.
Yeah, so hello, I'm Ronan. I'm a developer in the XCP-ng team. Usually I work on the storage layer directly in XCP-ng. For example, the SMAPI stack, the storage performance, and the integration of new drivers like XOSTOR. So next.
And I think maybe everyone has presented themselves?
No, we got Sam.
Oh yes, yeah. Sam, sorry, I forgot you. Sorry.
So hello everyone. So I'm Samuel. I'm the release manager for XCP-ng, and you may know me under the nickname Stormy on GitHub and the forum.
Okay, and did I forget someone else? No, I think no. Okay, so all these guys today are here to answer your questions, so feel free to ask them in the chat. Before talking about the main project we have for 2022, I think it would be a great opportunity, this live session, and because it's January, I think it's a great opportunity to discuss a little bit about the main topic we have covered in 2021, because for us, both for XN Orchestra and XCP-ng, it was a pretty hectic year, despite, you know, the global pandemic situation. We achieved a lot of things, and both for XCP-ng and XN Orchestra. As a first topic I would like to discuss today, maybe we can talk about a little bit about one of our star feature for XN Orchestra, namely XN Orchestra Backup. It's not only a feature, because obviously it's a lot of features inside XN Orchestra, but in 2021 we worked a lot, the XO team worked a lot on a major backup code improvement, revamp. Maybe Julien or Pierre, I don't know which one of you want to talk about that, but maybe you can provide us some details about the groundwork we have done for that part.
Yes, so I will talk a bit about that. So for when we developed the XO proxies, so the XO proxies is the main feature, is an important feature of XO, which allows us to run backup, but in decentralized way, because there were a problem with the XO architecture. For instance, if you had your backups, your VM, both your VM and the remote on which you wanted to save your backups in a data center and your XO in another data center, the whole data would have to flow from one data center to another. And thanks to the XO proxy we introduced last year, it's no longer necessary. So you can handle your backup in the data of your backup can stay in the data center to where your VM and remotes are. So when we had to develop the XO proxies, we needed to redevelop the backup code, because the backup code was too tangled and too tangled with the main XO code. So we had to develop it again, and this allowed us to have a better code with some perf improvement, also a lot easier to maintain, and we were able to tackle some bugs we had, some corner cases that are now better handled, and this paves the way for new improvements. For instance, this year we also introduced a merge worker, which we may maybe talk a bit about later, and also the S3 support for the backups. So I don't know if you have any question regarding this feature.
Actually, there is a question about the S3 and mini IO backup code from Mike Schmaltz. I'm wondering how the S3 mini IO backup code is coming along. I haven't built and tested recently, so I know we don't have Nicolas, which is our expert about S3 backup, but
also Florent worked a lot on this. So normally everything should be confined at the moment, but Florent, if you want to expand on that.
Yes, it was released first on the beginning of December, and it works quite fine. There are a lot of question and tests made by the source user and the latest users, and I think it's usable. We've got some usage, like as Julien said, we had to rewrite a lot of code, so a lot of some part of the code are not as better done as the rest of the code, but I think you can test it on your infrastructure and tell us if everything is okay. For now, we didn't have any blocking bug, and can iterate quite fast. So I'm confident with the S3 code.
Okay, so apparently, we have maybe some. Is there some non-issue around the S3 backup codes that we can talk about, or Do we have some?
I don't think we have any known issue currently. We introduced recently the compression, Z standard compression for backup on S3. There were some issue, but I think they are fixed now. So yes, so yes, please try again. If you have any issues, please report them on the GitHub.
Yeah, and on that topic, we'd like to really thank our community, because the way we worked on making the code usable for everyone, it was really important that our users were actively trying it and making some tests and giving us feedback, because we do our maximum to get decent testing, but it's really hard to be sure it will work in any cases regarding the speed of your infrastructure, the speed of the disks, the provider you're using, your network connectivity issues, and so on and so on. So that's why working with the community is really important, and we wanted to thank everyone that participated to that campaign.
Sorry, I think we maybe lost Oliver.
Yes, it's so. So
okay,
yes,
sorry.
it really was a group effort. So thank you very much for all the users, especially on the forum, that helped us a lot to achieve a good stability on S3 backups. So please try again and report any issue you had, either on the forum or on GitHub issues.
Yeah, indeed. About the backup overall improvements code, is there any work still in progress on our side, on the XEnorchestra team, step aside the S3 backup that we are still working on with the community feedback?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Is there, sorry, is there anything else to say about the XEnorchestra backup code right now? Are we working still on some topic that we could discuss or share with the community?
No, I don't think there are many topics worked on right now. So there were the backup workers that were introduced last year that really improved the backup execution. There were also the merge workers that allowed us to split the merging and to limit the number of VHD merge on a given remote, so that really improved the performance of the backup. And there was the S3 also with compression support that landed just last month. So no new topic at the moment, but
yeah. I understand that. Okay, thank you. So backup is a vast topic at Vates, and it implies a lot of people working on different aspects of it. So it's never over to work on that thing, and I think we will have more to say in 2022 on that aspect too. The next big topic we started working on in 2021 will be XO-Lite. I don't know if Oliver is joining us back.
Yes, I'm back on my DSL connection, so you won't have a video feed at the same time.
No, okay. no worries. So we were just starting to speak about XO-Lite, and I think it could be interesting if you could provide a little bit of backstory about XEnorchestra Lite, what we are going to do with it, and then I will have some data I would like to share with the community too, because. Yeah. Okay, so let's start with a little bit of background for those who are not familiar with the project, and I will take the
yeah, sure. Thank you, Mark. So in short, the concept of XO-Lite is to get a solution to manage one pool without having to deploy anything else outside that. So you can see as a solution to maybe bootstrap your own cluster by starting to be able to deploy, create VMs, etc., without any requirements, any dependencies that you might need on very small infrastructure. If you have only one machine, that also can make a lot of sense, because you don't need to deploy something big to manage your infrastructure. So it could be seen as both a bootstrapping tool to manage your infrastructure, but also something that could be enough to manage a very small infrastructure. So the goal is to just run into your browser to somehow replace XCP-ng center, so you don't need to install any client, having something that just work outside the box. So that's the main goal of XOLite. So there is no persistence because everything is running into your browser. But as long as you are aware of that, then everything will make sense as a user on this new UI and this new interface and tools.
Okay, thank you. So I think it's also safe to assume that XenOrchestra Lite is the one of the preparatory work, one of the first groundwork that we are doing in order to prepare the next major version of XenOrchestra. And we don't want the next version of XenOrchestra to simply be a revamp of the interface. So we decided a while ago that we would work on many different aspects in order to bring the community and the user of XenOrchestra and XCP-ng the solution that will fit the most your needs. So in the end of 2021, with Clemens, which is not with us today, but which is the UX designer that we are starting to work with on all the interface aspects, both XenOrchestra and XenOrchestra Lite. We decided to create a form, a questionnaire, in order to gather some information about you and your needs and what you are expecting from our solutions. So today I would like to share some of the data that we have collected, because we always want to be as much as transparent as possible in the way we are working, and I believe this data can be interesting to know for you on a general aspect, because it's always fun to have some data to explore, but also because it will give you some insight about the people around us and around you that are using XCP-ng and XenOrchestra. So let's start with the obvious, but not so obvious, because it seems that a very large majority of you are using XCP-ng today. So it's for us a very good news, because XCP-ng is a pretty young project. XCP-ng is a pretty young project because we launched it in 2018. And since that time, we convinced 82% of you, not that there is about 100 people that answer this form, but the data are pretty relevant, are consistent with what we are looking from our the data we are collecting in the back office. So we think it's still relevant. So you are pretty much only 20% of you are not using exclusively XCP-ng, but 11% of you are using a combination of both hypervisor that we assume are the user that have some subscription with Citrix hypervisor and that are maybe using XenApp or XenDesktop in this kind of environment. But pretty much all of you have been convinced, and that's a really good news for us. In other data that are pretty obvious, most of you are using XenOrchestra in English. That's not really a surprise, because we are thinking the UI and all the menu in English, but still, if you didn't know it yet, there is the possibility for you to select the language and the community. And once again, we have to thank you for that, because the community is the main contributor to the traduction, to the localization of XenOrchestra. So you can choose a different language than English, and we have I don't have maybe Oliver, do you know how many languages are available in XenOrchestra?
Not by heart, but I think that might be something more than 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know, Pierre, if you have that metric.
Yeah, exactly 10. Right
10.
now.
Okay, exactly.
Okay.
10. So it was pretty accurate. So all the traduction might not be up to date in the different language, because, as I said, it's pretty much a community involvement. But you can take a look and see if your language is available and use it. If obviously your language is not English, because we are thinking all the menu in English. So what was for me, because I didn't present it myself, I just noticed that now. But for me, as I work on the marketing in the marketing team, it's a bit more a surprise. I was expecting pretty much everybody to use XenOrchestra from a desktop or a laptop, but at least about 20% of you. And even 30% of you are using it from a smartphone and a tablet. Or tablet. So to me, that's a little bit of surprise. I don't know for you, Tim. Was it something you were expecting? You were thinking that was the kind of data we will collect? Maybe Pierre, because you are the main lead regarding the UI interface.
We mostly think of the interface in terms of desktop. So yeah, I didn't know it was that much like that many people used it on a tablet, but we can think about it for the next UI maybe.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think we will have to integrate some of this reflection. Actually, I already discussed a bit with Clemence about that, and she was thinking that the earlier we are working on a vision on a interface that will work for smartphone and tablet, and the easier it will be to make it available for desktop. So this is definitely something we will take into account, I think, for the next version. Okay, so Jason, I use it on my iPad without issue, works great. Okay, that's fine, because I must say I don't think we are testing a lot from on a tablet or a smartphone. But that's definitely something we will take more into account for the future version of XenOrchestra. The next thing we have collected, and I find it interesting to share with you, is that in which environment you are using XenOrchestra. So a lot of you, as it was a multiple choice answer, it's the reason why the percentage are above 100%. But it's sorry, I'm reading the comment at the same time. Tablet must be very different given comparable screen resolution. Yeah, that's true, but some tablets can be a little bit smaller, but and phone can clearly make the difference. I think usually if you go under 7-inch screen, it's the breakpoint for many tables that are standard. I think so. We will definitely. I think we will definitely test more, at least test more, and try to think more in terms of tablet and smartphone usage in the future. So 50% of you are using XenOrchestra in enterprise purpose. So I assume in a production environment, and you are also allowed to use it both in your enterprise in enterprise and in your personal lab. So that's still something interesting. And we are happy to have users that are coming from very, very various horizons. So from the student to the enterprise production environment, to any personal lab you might have. That's really cool for us, because we have a lot of different people using it, and that also means for the project a lot of different feedback and different conditions in which we know that XCP-ng is running. So that's fine for the project. Here is the size, or the standard size of the infrastructure that you are managing with XCP-ng. So there is a lot of you have what we could call a small infrastructure, but the number of people with a lot of hosts are not negligible at all, I think. So it's pretty spread up. So of course, 64% of you have 1 to 4 hosts. But the rest of you have a pretty spread repartition. So I think that means we need to be as much as possible compatible and able to manage any kind and any size of infrastructure. And for the VM, that's pretty much the same thing. Actually, that's even more even. The repartition is even more even. and some of you have a really huge infrastructure going up to more than 500 VMs. So that's something. That's something. And once again, this is a relevant data for us because it means that XenOrchestra is able to work in a very big infrastructure. So it's also important for us because in our own lab, we don't have the ability to test this kind of huge installation. So it's important for us to know that it works in a real environment. So at my work and my recommendation, we're planning on doing XCP-ng, and I'm looking forward to it. So we are too. So if you have any kind of question or if we can assist, don't forget that you can always open support ticket to ask for technical advice, but you can also contact us on all the channels that are available. So we are always happy to help to push on enterprise environment to deploy XCP-ng. Finally, the satisfaction around XenOrchestra. Currently, you are mostly satisfied, but the 35% of people that are partially satisfied with XCP-ng are clearly showing that we have still room for innovation. So and for improvement, of course. So that's comforting also in our opinion that the next version of XenOrchestra, the next major version of XenOrchestra, is something that is needed, and this first form is really the first statement to help us understand who you are, what are your usage, and this is the first thing we have done on that topic. There will be more to come in the next year. So if you want to be part of the creation of XenOrchestra 6 and XOLite 2, because it's firstly to develop XOLite, we will be glad to onboard you on that project of new version. So for information, all the data that I have shared will be available on the blog post on the blog, on the XenOrchestra XCP-ng blog very soon. And that's it for me. And I think we can go back to the main discussion and maybe discuss a bit more deeper about XenOrchestra Lite and show you some of the mock-up. We did share some mock-up in the end of the last year, so maybe I can show them again if it seems relevant. Oliver, do you have something to add to what I just said, or anyone in the discussion?
Yeah, so thank you, Mark. So I think I will try to give to everyone a kind of a recap on what's going on this year, the big topics. So we had a quick chat about XOLite. So as we said, this is a kind of a spearhead effort on revamping a UI because we are starting from scratch with XOLite. So it's a great opportunity to try to account for every kind of usage. It could be the display size, as we just talked before, or it could be the theme, the colors, the components, and so on. So that's a real kind of a groundwork that it started a few months ago. And this kind of work will be obviously a great way to pave the way for the new UI of XenOrchestra 6. That will be more than just a UI. So on that point, I wanted to share a bit with you that the main objectives that we want to achieve with the next big iteration of XenOrchestra. So outside XOLite, outside the fact it will be a new UI, we really want to shape XenOrchestra to be more relevant to first the usage that people are working, the way they're working with XenOrchestra, but also improve the overall user experience, but also the security, the performance, and all the stuff that we managed to build with the years. So to give you a quick example, when you start to build a lot of features and you start to add them in an existing UI, then at some point it's not relevant anymore because you just add content in a UI that wasn't really, designed to get all those features. So we think we have enough experience now with the XO5 to try to reshape it the right way and putting the features in each right category and things like that. But it's also outside the just the UI, the user experience too, it's also a great technical challenge, because we truly want to make modification on the way the web client is, getting information from the server. So, Julian, if you just want to give the big points, the things that will matter to consider that it will be done, or the big technical challenge that we'll have to overcome in general to get something that we could call in the end XO6. You are muted, Julian.
Yeah. Yes. So yes, so there will be a lot of changes on the XO6. So some are technicals. For instance, we intend to improve a lot the first load on XO6. So with reduced code, and also by lazily loading that data, because currently we know that there is a problem that a lot of data are loaded when you first load the XenOrchestra pages. It was due to the history of the project, because at the beginning we were mainly focused on smaller infrastructures, but with time going on, we have a lot more of users with a lot of VMs, for thousands of VMs, for instance. So this is something we are focused on to improve the performance. So this is one point, but also we will try to improve the UI. So based on the Lite experience, so we will introduce a better tree view, because this has been asked a lot by users. But also we would like to focus a lot on working of a group of objects instead of simply single objects. For instance, we would like to give you the ability to apply a given tag to any VM snapshots matching a given filter. So we will try to ease the everyday use case, but also to give you more features, more power for advanced users. I don't know, Oliver, if you have some more ideas.
Yes, we also have something that will change with time. It was related to our API. So when we started XenOrchestra, the main focus, as Julian said, was to create a web client for it. And we did that, and to achieve that, we had two splitted components. One is XOSTOR, the daemon running server side, and we got XOWeb, the code that's running in your browser, and they are discussing each other with JSON RPC calls, which was what we needed to get a web app that's just responsive, and also get the challenge of getting all the events happening in your infrastructure. Because you have to imagine that when your XenOrchestra is connected to thousands of machines at the same time, there's a lot of events happening. There's a lot of tasks and things like that. So we need to keep the UI displayed, all the new changes happening at any time. So this required to get something built that way. And more and more users were starting to use this API that was created initially to be not public, in a way that it was built for our own internal usage. And finally, it's not that we discovered, but at some point we got enough, let's say, a critical mass of users starting to use the API to integrate, for example, XenOrchestra within their own infrastructure, in their own systems. So we had two major trends happening in XenOrchestra. The first one was people wanted to request XenOrchestra outside from the web UI, and also getting XenOrchestra sending data to some external projects. For example, the plugin we got with an IPAM, so a netbox, allowing you to synchronize the IP addresses from your virtual machines to your netbox, so you could have in almost real time, the state of your used IP address and so on. So this made a lot of change in the way we are designing XenOrchestra in the future. For example, regarding the API, we understood that getting a JSON RPC call on the terminal could be a bit painful. So the goal is to also provide a kind of a public API at some point with a really simple way to call it. So something that might be close to a kind of REST API or something easy where you can just make your request with a curl or something like that. So especially made for people that wanted to use it at scale or use the central point of communication with all the hosts. So that's also one of the big challenge of XO6. It's to answer all those, what we call at some point the DevOps requirements that you might have, where you need automation, you need to send data, you need to request things without using the web UI. But obviously, we'll keep pushing on the web UI to get the best user experience, because it's not replacing, it's just another way to use that. And people really like to have multiple ways to interact with something. One way that could be manual through a UI that should be easy to use, but also with more automation, with scripts, or even Terraform or things like that. So that's the big point where we are pushing with XO6. So I think on the Zen Orchestra side and XO Lite side, we did a kind of a good review on what's going on and what's happening. I think that might be time, except Julian, if there is something else you have in mind we didn't cover yet.
No,
okay,
that's
so
okay.
We'll switch a bit to the XCP-ng project. So there is so many things also happening on that side. We had last year a lot of tech preview. So one goal is to get those being included in XCP-ng. But keep in mind that every new big feature will be deployed on new version of XCP-ng, because we don't want to modify too heavily an LTS version, because obviously this is a long-term support thing, and then we don't want to break stuff, obviously. So in terms of short and mid-term news, I can say that, Sam, you are working on a pretty decent release of 8.2.1. So can you recap quickly what's in there, and roughly when do you think we will release that?
Yes, so it's the merge of both changes we prepared on our side and the CU1 update Citrix brought to their hypervisor LTS release. So it's at the same time it's a big update, and it's an update on the LTS, so not supposed to break anything, to bring disruptive changes. So what can we tell you? Yeah, one of the big subjects we have been working on is secure boot support for VMs. And this will be supported in the next update. So the update will be numbered 8.2.1, but it's not an upgrade. I mean, you will automatically reach this patch number of XCP-ng with the standard update procedure. So yes, guest secure boot support is something that we that is ready, and that we are just finalizing at the testing level, and it also solves an issue that some people met with a specific security update from Microsoft Windows that refuses to install on XCP-ng VMs currently, because it wants to change the revocation lists for secure boot certificates, and it can't. So this will work.
And we had a question that I think it's somehow related about TPM. So in fact, that will be VTPM. And at some point, the answer is We don't have a firm answer on that, but part of the big update on XCP-ng is related to QEMU. So this is a big jump in terms of version numbering. This is required. This is a prerequisite if you want to use VTPM in the future. So you can see that as something paving the way for a future VTPM work. So that won't be available yet because this has to be done and tested, but this will allow maybe at some point to get the LTS version with VTPM support. But we try to have some coordination with Citrix on that topic because this is also a hot topic for them. So we hope to have something this year, but we can't promise anything on that front.
Yeah, at least this is something we have taken into account.
Yeah. We know this is something we have to release. Yeah. Sam, is there anything else big that we have to expect for the 8.2.1? Do we have just an estimate release date for a first, let's say, beta version to let the community testing it?
So the update will also come with an updated installer. So it will be a good opportunity to avoid installing countless updates just after you've installed an XCP-ng, a new XCP-ng host, at least for some time, because security patches and bug fix updates will continue to be released. So yeah, and we also have made some fixes in the installer, such as fixing a nasty loop when you set up software red for the system, which had a workaround, but it was annoying. I'm trying to think on what else.
And what about the schedule then?
So about the schedule, I'm most of the packages are built now. The next steps are building a test installation ISO that we can offer to testers, and also have testers install the updates without the ISO. That's 2 ways to update. That's 2 ways to help testing the ISO for new installations and upgrades from previous releases, and the update path using yum is for anyone who already runs 8.2. So soonish. In January, for sure, we should have something that is testable, and then we're trying to have a test phase that's both short and comprehensive.
Okay, thank you, Sam. So that's for the 8.1 coming very soon then. So I saw a comment from Jason about RunX. So RunX is also another topic that would like to move forward with it this year. So for people that aren't aware about it, the goal is to be able to replace RunC, which is used in Docker OpenMan use cases. When you start a container, for example, it will use RunC to make some kind of isolation with a equivalent of a shroot at some point. So the goal is to replace this component almost bit by bit in terms of API calls by something called RunX. So the original idea came from Stefano Stabilini, working at Xilinx. So the project existed, but for the Zen Excel API, not for the Zappy API, which is the one we are using inside XCP-ng. So Ronan worked with Benjamin on trying to somehow port this RunX to XCP-ng. So we did that. We did a tech preview. So basically, you just use your everyday Docker or Podman commands to do whatever you want with a container. And instead of spawning a usual container with RunC, it creates a virtual machine with Zen, doing all the heavy lifting and doing all the isolation work. So it means that your container will have a level of isolation that you couldn't have with RunC. So you can see that at a kind of containers on steroids in terms of security. So there's a similar project in the KVM world called Kata containers. So it's a similar principle to replace RunC by something else, and this is called RunX. So the goal then is how far we could go with that. We'd love to get compatibility with, agents that might run and start it automatically, maybe inside the Kubernetes infrastructure. So this is probably something we want to continue to move forward this year. So this is one of the big topics we would like to continue. While I'm continue to present the big challenge of this year, if you have questions regarding RunX, feel free to fire them, and we could give you more details if you like. So the other big aspects is IPv6, and this is typically the kind of feature that can't fit directly in the LTS version because this is a pretty big change. So it's not just adding something, because everywhere inside the ZAPI and the storage stack and so on, it wasn't made to run with IPv6. So we had to, revamp a lot of stuff. So it was also Benjamin working also with the help of Ronan to modify stuff at various places of the API and in XCP-ng. We have an available tech preview, if you like. You can test it. There's some feedback recently that we are aware of, but since we are really focused on the new big patch release of 8.21, we'll come back to that very soon in a matter of weeks to be able to move forward. So we'd love to have this support bundle in the next big release of XCP-ng that won't be an LTS. So we could, try to make it in that potential new release. And to answer your future question, no, we don't have any schedule for that right now. But that won't be an LTS anyway, so it means we could bring and pack more features that we can do on an LTS. So IPv6 itself is a kind of big topic because obviously the real interest that you might have is to not consume an IPv4 for your dump zero. And this is something really, really relevant because IPv4 are not going cheaper at all. And it starts to be pretty hard to get some of them. And sometimes you don't need to get an IPv4 just to manage your dump zero. It doesn't make sense. So you will prefer to use a v4 IP address for your production VMs that are exposing services to the outside. So it completely makes sense, and this is really something we wanted to push, and I think we are on the right tracks to do that. And again, thanks the community for all the feedback you are providing. This is really valuable to us because it allows us to go faster and to be sure that when we decide to release it, it won't be too broken. And the other big topic is regarding XOSTOR. So this time it's more Ronan's work. So as you may know or not, XOSTOR is leveraging a technology from a company called Linbit. The technology is called LinStore. So basically it's kind of hyperconvergence, but it's called disaggregated hyperconvergence. So in plain English, it means that instead of having a big clustered file system, having all the local drives of your pool, it means every time you will create a new resource, a new VM disks, then it will create a replication using DRBD. So it's using a block replication. So that's very, very fast. We tried to get fast hyperconvergence before with something you might heard before called XOSAN. XOSAN were using GlusterFS, so it was pretty solid. It worked pretty well, but the problem is it wasn't really fast for small blocks and random reads and writes. So as soon as you had something else than spinning Rust, as soon as you had, for example, fast SSDs or even now NVMe drives, it couldn't compete. So it wasn't fast enough. So that's why we had to go back to the design phase, start to think about how we could achieve that. And that's why we met, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago already. We met Philip, the co-founder of Linbit in Vienna, Austria. And we had a discussion and we made efforts to get it running into XCP-ng. And to be fair, that wasn't easy at all because we decided on the short term to rely on the existing SMAP-EV1 tool stack. So this is legacy storage stack. And this is a perfect transition that the other big topic of the year will be to get SMAP-EV3, which is the replacement layer on the storage side. And sadly, it's so it was initiated by Citrix, but the problem is it's half-baked. In short, you don't have a lot of features working. You can't migrate from SMAP-EV1 to V3. It's really not prime. So the goal is on our side to continue the work they started because the idea is really great, and we want to move forward on that. So in XCP-ng team, if I forgot a topic or if you want to give a bit more details on the topics that I talk about, so like RunX, XOSTOR, or IPv6, go ahead.
Maybe Ronan can talk about a little bit about the XOSTOR. I believe I remember that we have started a beta for XOSTOR. Am I wrong?
Yeah, exactly. The public beta, yes.
Okay, so all our things are going regarding the XOSTOR front.
For the moment, it's nice. We have just a few limitations to fix before the end of the month. For example, we can't use HA with more than 3 hosts. So it's a little limitation, but we have a fix, and I think we will have a new beta in a few weeks.
Okay, nice. So we are moving forward. XOSTOR is one of the projects that we didn't really anticipated all the difficulties we will have with that. Yeah. I remember when we met Philippe in Vienna in, I think it's 3 years ago now. I remember
yes.
Oliver said, I don't anticipate a lot of difficulties on the technical aspect. I remember that.
Well, that's a typical IT project. Yeah, but that's a good lesson too. That to me, that was a big milestone to understand that we should really drop this legacy SMAPI stack at some point. But the thing is, it will trigger a lot of different changes, even with a lot of consequences regarding even Xen Orchestra. So in short, with SMAP-EV3, you don't have any default format for your storage. So it means that basically you are storing blocks and then you just don't know anything else. So that's why, for example, you couldn't rely anymore on the VHD format that we are using in Xen Orchestra. So this year it will be also on Xen Orchestra side, initial work, the groundwork to start to make backups another way than using VHDs. So based on blocks and very likely using the NBD protocol. And so this is a pretty big change, and it should be done in parallel while we are working with SMAP-EV3. And to give you some example on the way how far it changes compared to the V1 is the fact that you could create your own driver without trying to fit a square, in a circle. So in short, because it's far more flexible, makes it a bit harder to back up and manage, but in the end, you could obviously integrate with other technology in a way that's far easier. So I see that Cyberpunk in the chat is talking about Gloucester and Ceph, and obviously having a safe driver, for example, will be far, far, far easier with a SMAP-v3 against SMAP-v1, because we could use the native connector to whatever kind of storage that might be used. So, for example, we could imagine to use whatever technology API that might be out there, for example, from any vendor, because we could build a driver to be compatible with it. That's why the big improvements with this MAPIV3 that decided to split the management and the data way it's stored together. So you just have the same calls. So you have the VDI.snapshot methods, but then it won't rely on any VHD format or things like that. It's entirely up to you to write how it will work. So to give you a quick example, we could plug it to a ZFS and say that a disk snapshot will just call the ZFS snapshot on the volume. So this is entirely up to you to build the driver. So it's not that complicated. Really, the real problem is to get the same level of features that you might have with this MAPIV3 compared to V1. For example, right now, as I said, there is no way to migrate from V1 to V3. There's no live storage migration at all. There is no backup working with it. So that's why we got a lot of work to improve that, to get something that would be enough, so you can still use it in a way that's transparent for you. You just have your existing backups and it works, and so on and so on. So that's a big project. We hope truly to get a kind of collaboration with Citrix on that front. But even if it's not the case, we will move forward because SMAPIV3 code is mostly open source. The API is open source, which is the drivers they created one or two driver, but it doesn't really matter. That's not where the problem is. So we really want to contribute upstream in general and to improve the overall project that might be used then by Citrix and by us. So this is also, to me, a transition to the last topic, which is getting more contribution to the Zen upstream project. Just to refresh your memory, Zen is the core hypervisor we use in XCP-ng. So Zen project is a fully open source project. It's GPL v2, and the biggest contributors are Citrix, SUSE, ARM, for example, the top tier. And we really wanted to also bring improvement in there because we are not seeing ourselves as just basic users of upstream projects. We really want to get the whole understanding and how it works and try to improve the whole project from the ground to the bottom. So it means with more Zen knowledge, we could add a feature deep inside Zen that might be used in the end in Zen Orchestra. So you get all the layers from Zen to XCP-ng to Zappy to Zen Orchestra in the end. So that's why we hired two new person, Andre this month, just at the start of the year, and Matthias that will come in a few weeks, and we'll continue to hire people with Zen experience to improve the project upstream and to continue to bring new features and improve Zen in general, because that will be also a good impact for the whole community and the whole world of people using Zen even outside XCP-ng. Mark, I don't know if there's other topics you wanted to
maybe
talk
there
today.
is one last thing that could be related to the Zen expanding ecosystem and the contribution we could have. It's a very long-term project, so I think it's a nice closing thing to talk about, because we have nothing really to present about it, and we have not yet started the work on a very technical level. But last year, if you have followed a bit our news, we have joined the RISC-V International Foundation. So to give a very, very short introduction to the project, RISC-V is a project aiming to deliver an open source architecture for CPU. So as we joined this group, this RISC-V International Foundation. We joined it as a strategic member, and our targets in the long term, because obviously this is not something that will be achievable even in the middle term. Our target is to provide virtualization instruction for CPU in an open source architecture. So I think it's a nice topic to close this first live, because it's also a way for us to reaffirm that we are strongly believers in the open source model. And RISC-V for us present the next big evolution of the open source world, because until now we had open source software, and maybe in the close future we hope to have open source hardware, which is completely new for us. So I think, Oliver, you have a bigger and deeper understanding than me on what means RISC-V to the open source world. So if you have some words,
yeah, sure. Just indeed to finish on that topic, it means that our long-term goal, as Mark said, is that for now we are helping people to switch from closed source virtualization platform to an open source stack using XCP-ng, but we really love to be able at some point that people would use XCP-ng on top of open source hardware, because it means that the whole stack, the whole entire stack will be fully open source. So in order to do that, you need open source hardware. And right now, there's some progress on various parts from different vendors, like, for example, HP and things like that. They are working on trying to open source a part of their hardware, but the core of the thing is the microcode within your x86 CPU, which is far from being public. It's something really closed and the kind of the keys of the kingdom, you know. So the goal with working on porting Zen, the hypervisor on RISC-V, is to building all the bricks needed at some point that when RISC-V CPUs will be powerful enough to run a lot of its machine in the data center, will be ready with XCP-ng. But you can imagine the amount of work, because it's not just getting Zen working on RISC-V. Then you need the rest of the platform, so the source stack, the dump zero, and so on and so on. But we started to, do that port, and in fact, I would say we are not that far from being able to boot a dump zero with a RISC-V CPU. So it's a fully emulated CPU right now. There's not yet virtual instructions available in the real world, but the draft, I think, is now finished. So this is a big trend, and we are, as Mark said, big believers in the way open source should be used widely, and that's why we are participating to that project, helping to get at some point our platform running on top of open source hardware. So again, this is a long-term goal, but this is our vision, and we are, I think, already pretty proud to be able, to help people transition from non-open source platform on virtualization to something more open, and having something very transparent business model based on supports and services and so on. So I think that's what really matters to us. That's our core values. So that's all to me, Mark.
Yeah, I believe that's a great conclusion. So if you have any question in the chat, it is still time to ask them. And if not, it's time to conclude our first live session. And we are hoping to do that a little bit more this year, at least more than once. So if you like this format and this session, let us know on the forum or anywhere where you can reach us, because it's really helpful for us to know if we need to pursue this kind of stuff or not. And I see that we have a question. So when will we be able to play with XO Lite? So do we have already a beta or something in head for that?
You can actually already test it. I will post a link in the chat of the topic on the forum that you can follow to test XO Lite. I'm posting it right now.
And I think the next question that will come, or that will probably come, is the next steps in terms of level of integration. Because if I remember correctly, we wanted to have a kind of a dashboard first, then interaction, the first interaction with the two machines, so you should be able to start them and so on. So we don't have a firm release date, but we really want to move forward on that incrementally. So because for now, XOLite is hosted on the XenOrchestra server, XenOrchestra.com server. It means that all the updates you might to do won't be something you will have to update manually on your side. There is no yum update. For now, the JavaScript code is hosted on our machine. So that's why it's really simple when we will communicate about a new feature, that you just go back into your HTTP address of your host and refresh to and be sure you clear your cache and just refresh, and you will see the latest version with the new update. So it's really meant at the start to be something that with all the updates bundled outside, so you don't have to make yum updates. In the end of the day, the goal is to directly bundle it within XCP-ng, so there is no external dependency on having an internet connection. But that's when we'll have enough stability in terms of code that we don't have to push updates through yum every week or so. So yeah, and I think Pierre, the link was maybe removed by the YouTube chat because I can't see it.
I can see it on my side, but
okay, we cannot. Maybe send it to me and I will share it, because I think with the Vates channel I will have the right to do that.
There's another question from Cyberpunk regarding the port to RISC-V. Will there be any port to ARM? Because I wanted to play with a Raspberry Pi. In fact, Zen is already ported to ARM. So the only problem is to get the rest of the platform working on that. And the big issue with ARM, and that probably will be the same kind of problem with RISC-V, is you don't have one platform or two like you might have with x86. Each platform is different because, as you might know, there is Raspberry Pi, but there's also the Ampere servers running 128 CPUs and things like that. So it's completely different platforms. This is we can't just say we will release an ARM support for the XCP-ng. It will be, if we want at some point, make a port to one platform. And as you can imagine, Raspberry Pi support isn't really the most required, let's say, enterprise thing that we could have at the moment. But everything is open. The main to me, the main question is how far and how long it we take to make that kind of port of the whole XCP-ng platform to Raspberry Pi. To give you just a hint, Zen was ported to ARM, so to a lot of different platforms, but for Raspberry Pi, it took some weeks of Zen experts to be able to make it work out of the box with the Raspberry Pi, just Zen itself. And it's just a part of the platform. So this is not trivial. And for the fun, to me, the question we have to answer first is how long to make it real. In my opinion, that's something that at least 6 months with one person dedicated to that. So that's why it's not yet on top of priorities. But again, if there is enough community support for that, and even there are people that wanted to participate to that fun project, we'll be happy to move forward on this, obviously. And thanks for the link for XOLite. It works when you post them, Mark.
Yeah, it seems. Okay, perfect. Okay, so is there any more additional question? Okay, I think we are good. So as I said, thank you for being here today, for having with us today. So we expect to do that a little bit more this year because it's a fun exercise for us too. And see you next time. See you next time. So Thanks, Guy. Thanks, everyone. And thanks all the Vates team that were here today. Thank you for your participation and the answers that you provide. Thanks a lot. And
Bye-bye.
Bye.